All right, everybody, good afternoon. This is Jonathan Albin. I'm your host for It's OK to Play. One thing has changed from the last episode we did, and that is we now have a formal sponsor. It is a game store in the city of Redlands, California called Board Games Paradise. Over there. And we're going to be doing something else special today. This is a special episode specifically for Board Games Paradise, and we are going to be interviewing a person that has a great affiliation with that organization and is a good friend of mine, and his name is Jonathan Beasley. There we go. Hit the button to, yeah, there's his charming face, and no, that is not a wanted poster. I know it looks like. You're welcome, John. You're welcome, John. I did try to make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing by putting a bit of a vignette shadow on it, but yes, he does look like he probably was arrested mopery in the attempt to gawk or something like that. But Jonathan Beasley is a model painter and a great associate of mine, and as he will be our interviewee today, we're going to let him tell a little bit about his history. So, John, Say hi to everybody and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello. Nice to meet everybody. My name is John, as my good friend Mr. Albin here already mentioned. So a little bit about me. I have been painting since about 2016. I personally, for me, I love the passion of painting. I love to see the creativity, not just that I myself can do, but I love to see the creativity that others can do. So that said, working with Jonathan has really been kind of a joy. Well, it has been a joy, but it's really been kind of a fun adventure seeing not just the artistic side of it in the painting aspect, but also the storytelling and the fantasy and the lore and just the crazy, crazy in-depth world he has created.
Well, thank you for the pushback. I greatly appreciate that. Your check will be in the mail. But so when you speak of being a painter, I'm going to put up one of the slideshows here. It's got a little bit shows you a little bit in the craft. Alrighty, John. So you say you're a painter. You've done painting stuff. What kind of projects are your favorites? I mean, I know that painting is a big category, and there's a lot of things that could be entailed. What do you like to do best?
So for me personally, I love any project that has a lot of detail work. I'm all about the detail because for me, I think the detail is what really sells a project. Not just as in it's something fun for me to do, as in to get into that nitty-gritty, but when it's all said and done, I want you to be able to look at that picture or at that project and have for lack of a better term, for it to tell you a story.
Excellent.
Know what's going on.
Cool. Now, as a quick segue, going back to our sponsor here, how did you come to know Richard and the Board Game Paradise store in particular?
So Richard and I go back to about the mid-2000s, and we actually met through our church. And ever since I've known him, he's been a massive board game fanatic. And even when I first met him, he had the dreams of starting his own board game store. As far as the store itself, I was actually there before it even moved into the store. I was helping put paint on the walls.
Oh, nice.
I go that far back. As far as my connection with the store, I am the store's commission painter. I love doing it. I love doing the work for the customers. I love seeing those smiling faces when they get their work back and think, "Oh man, this is awesome."
Yes.
I love not just the art side, but I love the story and the lore side. I love to see people kind of get enraptured in those new games and those new stories. Especially when, for like you and I, for the RP side, we can envision ourselves and put ourselves in the story.
Yes,
I really, really love that, and that's one of the things I really love about Board Game Paradise is they support that fanaticism.
Yay, fanatics! I do want to do what you just said. I'm going to insert myself in the story here a bit. I don't know if you know how Rich and I know each other, but his love of board games is totally my fault. When he was a young man, 15 years old, he met my son. And they were hanging out in the local area. And the very first day I met Richard was kind of traumatic. And what I mean by that is he showed up at my house to get my son to go with him someplace. But if you know Rich, he's got a full beard most of the time. I mean,
yes.
Well, he had that at 15.
Are you serious?
I am not kidding. He was that as hirsute as he is.
Wow.
So he shows up at my front door, not looking any different than he does now. You start wondering. You said he goes to church, but you wonder if the guy made a deal with somebody because he hasn't changed his look at all. But anyway, he shows up at my house, and I go, what are you doing here? This looks like a sales guy or something. He says, yeah, right. I'm here to take your son. And I go, my son's not going with you anywhere. He says, what are you talking about? And I said, you've got to be, 20, 22? I'm not letting my 15-year-old, 14-year-old son go out on the streets with a 20-year-old. He goes, I'm not 20. He says, I'm the same age as your son. And I go, prove it. I kid you not. Day one, I made him show me his ID.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So I'm sure he was really impressed with me as a diligent father keeping tabs on my son. But, yeah, he was 15, had a high school ID. It's like, oh, okay, I'm completely wrong. I am blown away.
Oh,
but
man.
From that day, he was at our house every week playing board games and role-play games with us. So his love of games, I take at least some responsibility for that. As a matter of fact, I was one of his consultants when he was looking at the idea of actually opening his first kiosk and everything like that. I was one of his consultants when it came to that. So you and I were closer together back then than we even knew, because I didn't know you helped him with the painting. So that's pretty funny.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How ironic that you would help him with the painting, Mr. Painter. So I'm also going to turn on the other slideshow and show everybody your work now.
Okay.
So I did get this question actually from one of the landowners of Nycos.
Oh.
I have a young lady on the East Coast by the name of Lisa Mueller, and she took one look at the models I have through pictures because she's on the East Coast. Well, I actually had some of them at the event that I went to where I met her, but she says, I must ask your painter, what is up with dry brushing, and where do you use it, and where in the process should it be? Because she herself actually does models and dioramas and stuff, but she's like a novice. She's a way novice. Okay. But she knows she's supposed to dry brush, but she wants to know where that is in the process. And while we're at it, why don't you give us a little bit about your actual paint process as well?
Okay, so why don't we start with the dry brushing? So first off, dry brushing can be a little bit subjective. It's not a must-have. I want to state that straight away. It's one of those things that if you're very new to it, it may sound intimidating. It may sound difficult. I assure you, it's one of those things, kind of like riding a bike. The more you do it, the easier it gets. Pretty soon, you're going to be doing it in your sleep. But pretty much what I use dry brushing for, oftentimes, is if you have a model with a lot of detail, it helps to dry brush to bring out subtle details that you otherwise wouldn't see. Say, for instance, if we start with something that's almost like a dark gray or a black, and then we dry brush on a lighter gray and to kind of bring out the little details. And what that does is it shows you, okay, this is where, say, for instance, the glove ends and the wrist begins, or where that piece of armor starts and where his helmet begins or ends, and so on and so forth.
Well, I've got, just so you know, I've pulled up the photo of the piece you did for me that was the Night Assassin, the blue.
Yes. Yes, I did quite a bit of dry brushing with him.
And I noticed that on the legs in particular, because it's kind of a flat piece, because it's representative of cloth that's across his lower torso, the leg poof, if you will, of the trousers he's wearing or the clothing he's wearing, definitely you can see that you've been able to raise that flatness by putting some dry brush on the edges of that to actually pull it off. So I left that static here for a second while you were talking, because that specifically talked about that. So now why don't you go ahead and give us more about your overall painting strategy? How do you approach a model?
So for me and this is first and foremost, I want to stress this, if I could give, frankly, two pieces of advice to any beginner painter, it would be this. Number one, always prime your models. Always, always. That is
Okay,
the biggest...
do you have a brand, and is it available at a certain store we know?
So, yes, it is, and yes, I do.
Okay, so feel free to give that information, because although the show is not, we are not getting sponsorship money from them, we are getting sponsorship money from the store, and so we can talk about the brands they do carry.
Okay, so that's good to know. So, seeing as we've kind of lifted that gate, I will say, yes, Board Game Paradise, there are two types of paint they sell. I highly recommend either one. That is the Citadel Chaos Black, and there's the other one, which is the Army Painter series. Frankly, any color you can get is absolutely perfect. And depending on the model is really going to depend on what color primer from the Army Painter series you want to go with. I usually go with the sprays, just because it makes things a little bit more time friendly. But on that end, always prime your models. The second piece of advice I would always give to anyone is, you're going to have those days where you feel down on yourself, where you feel like, man, I can't do this, this is terrible, it's looking... Let me tell you something right now. Every time you pick up that brush, you are getting better. You may not see it, you may not notice it, you may not believe it, but you are getting better.
Oh, that kind of fits into the NycosRPG idea, that you take a skill, and every time you attempt to use it, no matter how insignificant, if you attempt to use it, it gets a little bit better. Nice nuance there. Good job. Okay, so with the techniques that you use, why don't you tell them a little bit about what kind of pieces that you've done specifically for NycosRPG and for myself. Unfortunately, we didn't prep the series of pictures for that, but just give us a little bit of an overview. What kind of work have I had you do?
Oh, here comes the fun. So we've had, frankly, that's one of my many joys of working with you, is you find some of the most interesting models from all different sources. They may be from a board game that you could find at Board Game Paradise. They may be Bone Reaper minis.
Conan Exiles,
Yes.
Ankh.
So, yeah.
Descent, yeah.
Yeah, you get the idea.
Yeah.
So, actually, that's what I'm working right now, is your Ankh set, and I have to say those models are fantastic. I love the detail. Personally, I'm kind of a... How do I put this? I'm the kind of person that likes that grim, creepy vibe, and these definitely give out a lot of those vibes.
Nice.
And I love that. I love it to no end.
I'm sorry, you do have to give them back to me. I will need them back when you get done.
I will begrudgingly give them back.
Well, also, because of the fact we mentioned the board game stuff, I'm going to kind of blow my own horn in that one of the things that I've given you is a variety of scales, right? Because you did not only miniatures that are individual figures, but you've also done the cityscape for me for the Conan series, the little towers.
I certainly did.
So
I certainly did.
You are multifaceted, sir.
Yes.
So
in that sense, yes, I am.
Yeah. So from that, I want to lead to the next thing. You talk about the different things that a new painter would need to know. Are you now, or are you planning in the future to do painting classes and teaching people your techniques?
So I am definitely open to doing painting classes. That is something that, hint, hint, board game, if you wanted to throw my way, maybe we could talk something out.
Board Game Paradise? Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.
And okay, and just for clarification, no, I'm not trading you Ankh for painting lessons. No, I'm not.
That is something I'm definitely open to. I love to teach painting. I love to, and that's really kind of the fun thing is, for me, if you want to learn to get better, we can work on that. If you have a particular model where you're thinking, hey, I don't know where to go with this, I can help you with that. If you just want to learn to paint in general, I'm happy to help you with that. It doesn't necessarily have to be miniatures. It can be scale models or even a full game set. I'm willing to help you with that. I love to teach. I love to pass on that passion.
Oh, yeah, and before we go on to another one, I do want to mention a lot of times people look at like NycosRPG and they're looking at the role play. We talked about the individual models for war games and stuff, but I also wanted to draw out in particular one of the sets that you did for me that I didn't tell you, but you got honorable mention at Strategicon for the Flames of War.
Oh, really?
Models. Yeah, I didn't actually enter it in the contest, but when they saw them, they said if that had been in the contest, he would have definitely got at least the honorable mention. So.
Oh wow! Okay, well I'm jazzed to hear that.
So just so you know, and this is a blatant plug for us in the future. In February, there is an event down in LA that is a Strategicon convention, and I've already been approached to possibly be a guest of honor, but we are definitely going to be going there. And so just consider blocking out your calendar. Everybody, whether you're John or anybody else, make sure you take a look at strategicon.com and look at their February event, because we're going to be doing a lot of special stuff there, including the next stage rollout of the Nycos RPG and some very interesting other model-related details that we'll go into for you, John. There you go.
Very awesome. Very awesome.
So while I'm talking about my plans, why don't you give us a little bit of an idea of what even if it's just tentative, what your plans for the future as far as painting are concerned. Obviously, you're going to continue to work with Board Game Paradise on projects, but is there anything in particular you'd like to tease that you want to do coming up in the future that we can keep up with you on?
Yes. So I am, as you said, I am continuing my ever so fun relationship with you and with Board Game Paradise. If we kind of move down the avenue of Nycos, though, I am hoping to do some possibly instructional videos or just some painting videos for Nycos, but we will see how that goes. Things are a little tentative on that end, just because I do have a 9-to-5 job right now.
What?
But
you're actually who in the world has an occupation other than games? How could what's wrong with you? We need to.
I know. Shame on me.
I know. We have to fix this.
Oh, I could chastise myself.
Yeah, it's just horrible. But yes, good. Yeah, definitely would want to do it. Oh, I did have a question, which is a complete non sequitur. It's going back to something we said earlier. I have to ask. Looking at painting models for Nycos,
yes.
What do you do with the fact that the known quantities of lighting are different? Knowing that the sky is mauve and that the sun looks more purplish than our sun, what does that do to the paint schemes?
So it's going to sound a little counterproductive, but it actually frees things up a little bit. See, one of the fun things about Nycos is Nycos is not your ordinary fantasy world.
You mean it's not your clumsy old system?
No.
NYCOS, not your clumsy old system. See what I did there?
Oh, okay, very fun.
We actually found that out 45 years after I designed this. So it wasn't like I go, oh, that's a cool name for a world. No, Nycos has been Nycos for 45 years, but literally a buddy of mine was helping me do some marketing and noticed that and said, oh, look at that. It's not your clumsy old system. So.
I love it. I'll take it. So that's kind of the fun thing about Nycos is, as I was saying, it's not your typical fantasy world in the sense that, you're not corralled in by these traditional themes and traditional ideas. There's no, for lack of a better term, there's no gatekeeping in the sense that, a dwarf can't be, for instance, purple. Why can't a dwarf be purple? Why not?
Cough, cough, Brendan. Cough, cough, Grim.
Yes, Grim. Thank you. My apologies.
No worries.
But you get the idea. It's the idea of the traditional is thrown out the window, and it frees up so many lovely options, and it allows your imagination to run wild, both for me artistically, but also in the fantasy world.
Yeah, like the war pig model you made with the pink, and the orange. Yeah,
that's
awesome.
I rather enjoy painting that one.
Yeah. Alrighty, so Now, brainstorming, where do you see yourself, your painting projects and stuff, say over the next 5 years? What would be the perfect environment for you to end up? I want you to. We're playing a bit of a game here. I'm asking you to imagine.
Okay.
Everything goes exactly like you want, and you get to live the perfect life as a painter without the restrictions of a job and stuff. What do you see that life looking like in, say, 5 years?
Say 5 years from now, I would love to continue my relationship not only with Board Game Paradise and be their full-time painter and continue to bring tons of ecstatic new players and new people to that world of adventure, but also to the worlds of Nycos. I would love to be the person that people can come to and say, hey, this is my idea for a character. Can you paint me something that embodies this idea?
Nice.
I would love to get to the point where my 9 to 5 is painting. My 9 to 5 is making your idea, your fantasy, come to life.
Excellent.
And for me, the reward at the end of the day is, don't get me wrong, I love the joy of painting, but one of the biggest rewards is when you give that model back and you see that smile on their face and they go, oh man, I can't wait to put this on the table.
Awesome. All right, so now we're going to play an actual game for a second here. I call it trivia time. I'm just going to ask a few questions because I have a rather extensive knowledge of model history and painting. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask you some questions about the history of painting.
Oh, okay.
And I don't expect that you'll know all of the answers, but you will definitely show yourself to have some kind of authority if you know some of them of the past. So I'm going to start off with some easy ones. Today, the Games Workshop has one particular brand to which they have attached themselves. What brand of paints are to be used on Games Workshop models?
That is Citadel.
Citadel. All righty. Now, Citadel had a partner. Do you recall who their partner paint company was, say, circa 1995?
I want to say it was Vallejo.
It was not. Vallejo is a much newer paint company. Vallejo's only been out about since 2000.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
No.
Yeah. And I say partnership, and we will probably get a comment if this ever goes to YouTube, where people will go, "That's not right." But I believe they had a deal with Raul Partha. You probably never heard of Raul Partha.
No, I can't say that I have.
Okay, so yeah. There was a miniatures series that came out in. Gosh, I'm gonna date myself here. It was in the 1980s. I can't remember exactly which year, but I'm going to have to just throw that question out because I can't. I can't remember it. It's not fair to ask a question if I can't answer it, so that's not right. Let's see. What is the name of the official black, the slate, the gloss black in the Games Workshop paint series?
The gloss black.
The deepest shiny black there is.
I believe it is Abaddon black.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yes.
I had a Black Templar army, and I was going to be such a great painter myself, so I decided to paint my entire Black Templar army in Abaddon black. Guess what? washes don't work on Abaddon Black. You can't
Yeah,
you can't lift any. They actually. I mean, I played it, and I had some red and I had some white on them to give the 3 color requirements for back in the day competition. But literally, my army was known when it hit the field as the Black Blob because the tanks look like bricks.
Oh no! Oh no!
Well, the worst of it was that I tried to dry brush, and when I dry brushed a gray on it, all it did is it made the highlights flat black, and the gloss that would have normally made that part stand out was muted.
That sounds about right. You know, that's kind of funny.
Yeah,
I've had some similar slip-ups with Abaddon Black, believe it or not.
Yes. Well, it's such a, you know, when you see a piece that's got that on the shine on the edge of it, like the top edge of a model, whatever, that's so pretty. You go, oh, that's really cool. I just want to put more of that on there. Slot.
Exactly.
Oh, what is the this is one of those kind of non sequitur questions, but what would be the most interesting painting tool that was not a paintbrush you've ever used?
Ooh, now you're asking the real questions. So, as far as the most interesting thing I've used that was not actually a paintbrush, it's going to sound weird, and I'll explain myself. It was a spatula.
A spatula? Really?
Yeah. It sounds crazy, I know.
And you weren't painting a model of Tammy Faye Baker at the time?
So this was for a rather large-scale piece, and what I wanted was to give the impression that this thing had seen some warfare. It was actually a GW Chaos Warhound Titan, and I wanted to give the idea of this thing has seen some use, it's been through some stuff. So what I did is actually using an airbrush and a spatula, I kind of spatula on some rather
literally shoveled. You literally shoveled because the spatula is a kind of a shovel. You actually shoveled it in, huh?
Pretty much, I just used the spatula as a way to kind of control the airbrush and get it to fade in certain areas, and then kind of highlight other areas to give it this idea of it has like smoke damage. It's been fired at. It's taken shots. It's nice. Things have ricocheted off of it.
So it sounds like you do a little bit of role playing in your painting.
Yes, I do.
That's really a cool touch. We may want to consider that as a show we might do at some point. Is have a group together and bring their models and have them paint while we're playing.
That would be very fun. I think that would be great.
So, all these things that we're going to come up with in the future. Mwahahaha.
Things come to those who wait.
Yes. So I'm really glad you answered that question that Lisa had. In the future, we'll actually be doing some of these kind of shows in the live streams so that we can actually have chatters ask questions and such too. So
right.
In the meantime, I'm going to be leaving this to our viewers. If you want to leave in the comments any questions you might want to ask of John, and we will get those put in front of him on the next one of these episodes we're going to do. We have a lot of exciting other things coming up in the shows coming forward, but I do have to do the bit of brainstorming here, John. What are your next steps? What are the next projects, say, in the next month that you have already on the table?
So for the next month or so, I have a whole lot of a whole lot of it, and I am loving every minute of it. On top of that, in my personal repertoire, because I do love to do my own projects on the side when I have the time and so forth, I've been having a lot of fun with the Lord of the Rings series, which another shameless plug. I'm pretty sure you can find over at Board Game Paradise.
Yeah, is that a collectibles game or is that a tabletop?
This
box set kind of game.
So it is a box set, but the models again are very detailed, and I mean, let's face it, Lord of the Rings is just so classic. It's just so awesome in that sense, and I love For me personally, I like to be the gross mean guy, so I love painting the orcs. I love coming up with different color schemes for different tribes of orcs and so on and so forth.
You just gave me a new name for a villain. Gross mean guy.
I love it.
Welcome to Nycos, folks. that's how bad guys get formed. Just because somebody says something kind of cool like gross mean guy.
Who's that gross mean guy? What is he? You just asked.
Grosmingi. Gross mean guy. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, and rumor has it that you have a 40K orc army that's waiting in the wings to get painted.
Yes,
or did you already flagrantly sell that off?
No, that's staying with me actually.
Because somebody said you like mean, ugly orcs, right? Okay.
You know, I will admit, I looked through it and I thought, you know, some of these things, there's some collectors out there that I bet would love this, and then I looked at it and I went, I'm a collector.
I
like these things.
That's fair. That's fair. So that's good to know. Just for the viewers, the idea here is that I used to play orcs rather extensively, and I had about 15,000 points in Cult of Speed. Ooh. And I also had 5 armies, and unfortunately I had a fire about a year ago. Well, you remember when we first met. And so all of my games materials, I had 750 board games, went up in smoke. So I had 5 armies, including 15,000 in 15,000 points. And for guys that are gamers, you know what that number means. Yes. But it was a combination Cult of Speed and Death Skulls, and a couple of Ludaboy connections. I had a scratch-built Basilisk.
Oh man,
he's gone. It was I ceremoniously named it Big Bada Boom, and then and I built a subsequent vehicle to go with it, and unfortunately I misread the scale, and so it was a too small version of a Vindicator.
Oh boy!
So I turned it into a Ludaboy Vindicator, and we called it Itty Bitty Boom. So it's Big Bada Boom and Itty Bitty Boom.
You know, that's the fun thing about orcs is this is all completely kosher. It's all allowed.
Yeah, the most recent versions aren't so much. They won't let you use, because when I played, it was back in my day, back in the 1980s. Yep. The 3rd edition rules actually stipulated that the orcs could use any model constructed, so it didn't have to be GW. I could use that Corvette model in your video sequence to make a scooter, a vehicle if I wanted to. And the rules for movement were kind of clever. You could load as many boys on a truck as you could, actually on the model, and as long as you moved the model on the surface, so moving across the ground, it was fine as long as no models fell off, and those that fell off had to make saving throws or die. So I built a Lego battleship and put it on tracks.
Oh, man.
Put rigging all over it, and then I hung the models by their weapons or their arms or whatever, and I could put 100 models on that battleship.
Oh, my word.
And move it across. Oh, yeah, it was... I could only play it in the open games. I couldn't play it in any point system because I had no way of calculating the points of that model combination, and it certainly wouldn't have been legal for that. But I would play. I'd walk into the store and be braggadocious because I used to travel to all the different stores, and I would say, "I'll take all comers, every army you've got, however many points you think you got, and we'll play against the what was it called? Doom Ship. DHUM. No. Doom Ship. DUMBSHIP.
That's hilarious.
So, yeah. Obviously, our time must be running out because that sounded like a clock going off. but it's probably a phone call
Oh,
coming
no.
in. But
No, I do apologize about that.
no, okay. So, and finally, here at the end, do you have any questions that you would want to ask the audience, not seeing them? What kind of questions, opening questions, would you ask them about their painting stuff? And then finally, do you have any questions for me?
Okay, so let's start with the questions for the audience. How do I put this? What makes you want to paint? Okay, so more specifically, do you paint because you enjoy the painting? Or because you want to have that army that just impresses people? Or because you actually want to get better and develop a skill? Or do you just do it simply for the pleasure of it? Or maybe it's something in between. I'd love to know.
Excellent. And so if you're watching this video, feel free to leave a note down below or PM me directly and let me know that information, and I'll get it to John. This will help lead to our next episode together, which probably will be next month. But then, do you have any questions for moi?
So, my question for you.
And notice I left it open-ended so he could actually ask more questions, because he, after all, is Olaf the Grim in the stories of Nycos.
So, seeing as we've talked about what's in my future, I'd love to know, hear straight from the horse's mouth, what is in the future for Nycos? Well,
imagine you asking me that question. Why, thank you very much, Jonathan. Your check is in the mail. Did I already say that? Okay. Yes, we are in the final stages of the alpha test of the NycosRPG. I've taken it to a couple of public events, found that everything that I intended to do with it as a shakedown cruise worked fine. We got new players that learned how to play the game in less than half an hour, even with no background in roleplay. So that's coming along really well. We've got the event that I mentioned coming up in February. NycosRPG is now available for our Patreon followers, and the Patreon is listed down below. So if you back the Patreon program at the $5 level or higher, you gain access to the Dark Shards mechanism, which is the NycosRPG high fantasy setting, and all of the tools necessary to play are already developed and usable there. So that would be, you get the access to the World Anvil account, and by building your own World Anvil account and logging into the Dark Shards, you're immediately able to start playing in the new environment. I'll be doing another particular show about that in the near future. I am one of the few game masters who does live games still at a game store. I know. Yes. I know. Shut up. Yeah, there actually are. So if you want to come and play at my table, and I challenge you, the viewers, to let's overwhelm the store. I have active space for 15 players. I have run groups as large as 107 players in the same game at the same time. So we have huge potential here, but I would just love it if you guys would come down to Board Games Paradise. It's on State Street in the center of fundamentally Old Town Redlands, in Redlands, California. I believe it's right near the corner of State Street and Orange. I might be wrong about that, but it's right there. It's just down the street from the old Redlands Mall. And we are there from 6 o'clock p.m. until they close. Generally, they throw us out about 9:30 to 9:45, but we've made it as late as 10 sometimes, depending on what other events they've got going on. Also need to mention that it is the local resource for Magic the Gathering for a whole lot of the board games that are new and hot. One of the things I have to say about Rich is that Rich is very deeply entrenched in something called the World Series. There's a Board Games World Series that he's a part of, and they host and do trainings and teach people and let them practice at the games that are in the World Series of board games. So those are the things that are going on. Another thing that's going on is that I'm going to be making presentations at an event in October as well, and I don't have all the details on that, but it will be actually in reference to another project I'm working on called Imagination Rejuvenation, and I have in LinkedIn, I have a newsletter called Imagination Nation, as in the Echo, Imagination Nation. But the idea is that we as a people have stepped away from the creativity of our youth, and I've discovered, unlocked, if you will, the ways for us to return to that level of creativity that we had when we were kids. And by doing so, unlocked our ability to expand our creativity as adults as well. So thank you for asking. That's what's going on right now. For additional information, check out the Patreon address down below. Watch for our other videos that are on NycosRPG or Passages RPG on Twitch. And, of course, come and visit us at the game store on Mondays at 6 p.m. The store is open 7 days a week, and generally speaking, they open, I think, around 11 o'clock and stay open until 6 or 7 most days of the week with additional special events. So also look for them at BoardGameParadise.com because they've got a lot of information, and their schedule is located there. So thank you for your time, Jonathan. I greatly appreciate. Is your name Jonathan or John? Just John. I can't remember.
Okay, well, I'm more than happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast, and I look forward to hearing some of the responses from the viewers as well. I really do. I love the passion of painting, like I said, so I'd love to see what drives others to do what they do, and maybe show us some of the projects you're working on.
Ooh, that's a good idea. So I'll definitely have to add that to make sure that's available as well. Our Discord is available also for our Patreon members. So if you back the Patreon program, you actually also get a chance to be on our Discord, which will give you unique opportunities to, say, ask John questions, because he's in our Discord server as well. So
yes, I am.
Hint, 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 everybody. You want to pick his brain? That's the easy way to get to him. So
please do. It needs picking. There's tons of things in there I need out.
Yes, I was always wondering about that. That is a little. You just made it creepy, John. You just made it creepy. All right, John. Thank you very much. Thank you to our viewers and fans, and thank you for Board Games Paradise for their support in putting this together. If you have any additional questions, feel free to contact us. Have a great day.